Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of General Geekery. We've got Brian, and as always, with me is JD.
Hello.
And today we are going to we're going to continue our G.I. Joe review. We started off with Real American Hero, progressed through Spy Troops and Valor versus Venom, and that brings us up to the DTC line, which is one of my favorite lines.
They were mostly mail-aways from Hasbro's own, what was it, Hasbro Toy Shop, their own online
Yeah, it was
toy
online.
retailer.
So the problem was that I think that they were having a lot of problem with distribution at the time, which has not changed in the slightest. So they decided in their infinite wisdom that they were going to start marketing their figures. Excuse me. They were going to start making their figures available to online retailers only, with the exception of Toys R Us, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but it didn't really pan out the way they wanted it, I don't think. However, there are some fantastic figures in this line.
Well, what did help was Toys R Us actually carried. You couldn't always, the availability wasn't always great, but at least the DTC stuff, if you couldn't get it online, there was a chance you could get it at Toys R Us. Back in the bygone era when there was, places to go buy toys at. So,
Which,
we
I
are
mean,
clearly
to me, the
talking
theory
about.
was sound. It's like, we're going to sell to online retailers because our distribution sucks. So we have enough toys for everybody. We're going to make it available for everybody to get stuff. And it didn't work out that way.
I think part of the problem was, I think some of it may have had to do with some of what they did. There might not have been as much demand for, or it's entirely possible some of them were overproduced, because a lot of the stuff, even some of the really cool stuff, doesn't go for that much on the secondary market. So either,
and that's a good point. I was going to bring that up too. Is that when you look at the secondary market for DTC figures right now, it is at two ends of the spectrum. They're either dirt cheap or they're really expensive.
there's and really, if you're coming across the middle ground, where the prices are higher than you want to pay, sometimes it might just be because the people selling them don't realize that some of them, there's just not that much demand for it. I mean, DTC had a lot, the direct to consumer, had a lot going for it. Character selection, which I was all over.
Yes.
Most of the figures had parts reusage from the rest of the New Sculpt era, but a lot of them were well done, well chosen parts, and
exactly.
They had vehicles to go with them, some of which were exclusive to the DTC line, and those go for metric assloads of money on the secondary market now.
Yeah.
I think that line, and it ran from 2005, latter 2005, into 2006, and it proceeded, the end of that line, basically led into the introduction of the 25th anniversary. So,
exactly. So the first wave consisted of, you know what? We forgot to do. Oh man. So JD wanted to
don't worry about it. Just go.
All right.
Just go with
get
it.
back to that, I guess.
Just go with it.
All right. So the first wave consisted of barrel roll. I think they lost some of their trademarks, so they had to rename some of their guys. So Salvo with his name, which was David Hassel, Footloose, Major Barrage, Sergeant Mutt, and Spirit Iron Knife.
Incidentally, David Hassel, he was named after one of the Hasbro employees that worked on the Real American Hero line. So It was a tribute to him. Not that tribute as in he was dead. No, he wasn't. But it was a nod to him. So
Gotcha.
um,
That barrel roll is one of my favorite figures. I use that. It's
it
that two-tone
it was
tan.
it was one of mine. I loved the barrel roll character when he was introduced, but this was like this emphasized his sniper classification over the over the air commando designation, and so he's all desert he's all desert tan with some camo, and he's all earth tones, and the sniper rifle he came with was freaking cool. So yeah, I could choose that one first too. I mean, I like the other two barrel rolls, but this one I felt fit the character really well, and it didn't have. Um, it felt less cool comic book guy and more cool soldier type thing. So yeah,
Absolutely. And the proportions on the figure are just beautiful. I mean, compared to like um, Footloose, who is in that wave, um, it's reusing parts in that, and it's still very Veller versus Venom wonky proportions, short torso, long
yeah,
arm, small head.
yep.
Same with
But I have to hand it to them.
Spirit.
But I have to hand it to them on Footloose. That was the first new Footloose figure they had done since Slaughter's Marauders. So even when the figures weren't great, there was a lot in that line that I latched onto because they brought back characters that had been lost to the sands of time. Salvo, another one.
Yeah, well, and that rifle that Footloose came with was phenomenal. It was a really nicely sculpted M4 with a detachable M203 grenade launcher. So I mean, it came.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was that was one of the rare Hasbro weapons that had pieces that came off of it, and it was like it was like because it was shortly, no, it was right around this time that Marauder Gunrunners was launched.
Yeah.
And now they perfected the modular weapons thing, but it was cool when Hasbro would throw those kind of touches in with the gear for their figures.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll notice that everybody in that particular wave was all GI Joe, which then led to the second wave of DTC, which, as JD mentioned, is direct to consumer. I guess I probably should have said that, but which is a Crimson Guard, Major Blood, Meta Viper, Range Viper, Scrap Iron, and a Snow Serpent. While the proportions were kind of wonky again on a lot of these, that is hands down my favorite sculpt of Major Blood's head. He does not have a sculpted on helmet. Helmet's removable. I actually set one aside because I like to use that head for customs because it is the only Major Blood head that has a removable helmet.
Well, and it had a ton of character in the face, like
yeah, exactly.
Like he said, like badass mercenary, and yeah, that was, yeah, I was gonna pick him as a favorite because yeah, he had a lot going on. He had, well, I don't know why, but I like I don't know, the what was it, a shamag or a bandana or something that came. That was a nice touch. It had a splasher color because it was red. Because all the rest of him was like dark brown, light brown, gold. He was all earth tones, but it made the color pop just a bit without being obnoxious. So I think that might be one of the best versions of Major Blood Hasbro ever made.
Yeah, the proportions are still a little wonky on it. I'm not real fond of the overall sculpt over the years, but that is fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's mostly parts from the Blackout figure.
Yeah,
they added the Firefly arms to give it so that he didn't have the blackout, pre-post arms. But I think the proportions are a little weird because, again, the short torso. I don't think the arms are out of control on that like they are on the guys like Footloose and Selvo, though. So I give them that.
Another one of the repaints from that wave, which is a repaint of Swamp Rat, was the Range Viper. Well, again, still kind of walking in the proportions. I'm a huge Range Viper Range Viper fan, and that helmet that it came out with was amazing for the time. The skull helmet, and I really liked what they did with the color scheme, the two-tone blue and gray.
Well, I liked it as the Range Viper better than the original figure.
Yeah.
But I can vouch that the helmet is still really cool because I may have recently used that helmet on a custom that I made for Brian. So exactly. I'm a little biased. I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, I like that image for the Range Viper better than the original figure, which I was never a big fan of.
I wasn't, when I was a kid, I didn't have one. I didn't want one, but it has really grown on me over the years. Even just the weird sculpt of the head is definitely something I've come to appreciate over the time.
Well, this series of figures actually lets us discuss something that we have almost always overlooked when we were talking about the G.I. Joe line. The Crimson Guard. Some people love them. Some people don't care. Some people think some people feel that the Crimson Guard, the CGs, are as critical, that they stand the test of time with the blue shirts and the Vipers as some of the greatest Cobra Troopers of all times. As a concept, how do you feel about the Crimson Guard? Because let's face it, they've got a big legacy, and we've almost always glossed over it, except if we were talking about the leaders, the Crimson Twins. We've almost completely glossed over the troops themselves. Are you a fan, or are you not a fan? I don't know. We've never even discussed it. Now that I think about it.
Of the concept, absolutely. I love the idea that highly placed white collar workers throughout the country are Cobra agents. I think that is a fantastic idea, and just chilling when you talk about it. I really am a huge fan of the Crimson Guard Immortals. I love the concept of that these guys are badass, but there's a whole nother level of badassness to it, which inspired me to do immortal specialty Vipers when I first started customizing. So I did a Night Viper Immortal and the Frag Viper Immortal, and I think you sent me a picture of my Flak Viper Immortal.
The Flak Viper Immortal. Yeah, I found the Flak Viper Immortal in the archives on Joe Customs. So I took the phone and I just took a photo of the screen and I sent it to him. He's like, "That's a blast from the past." I'm like, "You made this custom so long ago. I don't remember ever seeing it." He's like, "It was good for the time." I'm like, "No, it's just good. The color scheme is badass." So he's like, "Yeah, it was great for the time." No, still great. You just do better work now. So. Okay, you like the idea of the Cobra soldiers, the elite Cobra soldiers that are embedded into everyday life,
highly
where they have
workers.
Yes, but you like the idea. Now, what do you think of the idea that Larry Hama went with, where they're all surgically altered to look like the one guy that was in Vietnam with Stalker and Storm Shadow, and I hate it, and I can't disguise my hatred of that concept. I know what they were going for.
I've got a lot of I remember reading it as a kid, and I remember liking it as a kid. So it's kind of hard to get past the nostalgia factor for me. But you know,
Okay.
when I stop and think about it in a modern world, um, think how that would confuse facial recognition software in this day and age.
Oh,
There
no.
is the
I'm not.
I've seen some stuff on facial recognition software, like in casinos. I saw a special about how they do it in casinos, and there's one thing you can't change, and that's how the width of your eyes, how far apart they're set. That's one thing that so like software in Las Vegas keys in on is how
Ah,
apart your eyes are, and you can't change that. That's one part of your facial face that you can't change. So I mean, it's
ah.
cool kind of a cool theory, but it's not very practical.
Well, okay. On as kind of a sci-fi concept, it's not really sci-fi because it's possible in the real world. But 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 the idea that there's an organization with ill intent that decided that everybody who was this trooper had to have the same face. Kind of weird. That's the part I didn't really settle with. But as decoys, like if you sent the CGs into battle and they didn't have their, that might be confusing. I think I just didn't like the idea that these people who were supposed to be regular people couldn't actually have their own identities. But
Well, and see, I'm going
then,
to stop you right there and say that the file card you're talking about, the battlefield, it specifically says on the file card they're too important to be squandered on the battlefield.
yeah, no, I don't mean battlefield as in combat zone. I mean battlefield as in if they are supposed to be the elite core of um, faceless minions within Cobra. Frankly, I don't know. I guess they were always used as bodyguards for the upper echelon of Cobra and stuff.
Which seemed like a waste to me.
Yeah, I mean, I had a problem with it because these regular guys, they can't feel like individuals, even though they have families. But then I'm like, well, I guess. I mean, if you're dumb enough to join an organization like Cobra, well, I guess. I mean, I guess you wouldn't really. Maybe you don't really value your individuality, anyways. I don't know. Or I don't know. I guess.
I think you're probably so brainwashed and indoctrinated at that point in time, it doesn't even matter.
That's probably true. I have always been almost completely neutral on both the idea and the original toys of the Crimson Guard. The original toys, are they cool looking? Yes. They're very, very regal looking. They look so regal. They are in a modern setting, like modern of the 80s. They're so regal looking that they are impractical.
Yeah,
now,
I will agree with that because I had one as a kid and I didn't know what to do with it because after I read the file card, I'm like, when is he ever going to wear this uniform? And why does he have a gun?
I
never use a gun.
Yeah,
it didn't make sense.
I had a Crimson
as a kid.
I had a Crimson Guard figure, and I used him as a bodyguard for Cobra Commander because that's kind of what they. But I just didn't like the idea that these guys would have to go outside sometimes, even if they were on a procession detail. They're going to get dirty, and then Cobra Commander's probably going to shoot them in the face for getting dirty because he's a giant flaming douchebag. But if I'm going with the Crimson Guard, and I'm a minority, I'd like their backstory. If you can call it backstory, that was established in the cartoon. The way the cartoon treated, going back to the Zaymod, obviously they worked for extensive enterprises. Their financiers, they've been backing Cobra. It implies that
your audio's getting bad. All right. So sorry about that, folks. Like every once in a while, our audio will just go to shit, so we got to restart the meeting.
So, if I'm looking at, because I don't really know where the recording started going to shit, so I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna start here. If I'm looking at the Crimson Guard as a concept, I can't go with the comic book version. I understand what they were going for, and I actually understand why it intrigued people. It didn't do it for me. If you look at the Sunbow cartoon was not always great with the substance in terms of they didn't always establish a lot of backstory for things, especially on the Cobra side. But one of the things that they did do was in later on in the run of the show, once Tomax and Zaymot and the Crimson Guard are introduced into the mythos, the implication that you get from the Pyramid of Darkness 5-parter is that Extensive Enterprises has been financing Cobra since the beginning. They've been the financial backing for Cobra since early on. Now maybe they weren't solely responsible, but they were clearly providing a lot of money to get a lot of this technology out there.
I always thought Extensive Enterprises was a front company.
I'm certain that it is, but like I'm certain that it is a front company for much for I don't know, maybe weapons manufacturers, not like Destro, where he's an arms dealer and he's got his own armament company. But I always got the sense that either Extensive Enterprises was kind of a rival company for Mars, or whatever it was that they were the front for. I always got the sense it was either a rivalry for Mars, or it was simply a conglomeration of a lot of businesses that saw a lot of money in arming the world as much as they could. Probably. I mean, they could have been a front for international corporations. They could have been a front for corrupt governments across the country. We never see the people behind. We never see the people that Extensive Enterprises were shielding, but I got the sense that they were one giant entity hiding behind a really cool corporate logo. And that, to me, it feels like, well, pretty much the modern world. But the implication is that Extensive Enterprises was somehow filtering money to Cobra Commander. They start Cobra, and then they kind of when Cobra Commander tries to betray, when Tomax and Zaymot try to betray Cobra Commander, and then he tries to betray them in return, Cadet Deming and the Crimson Guard, they side completely with Tomax and Zaymot. There is absolutely no loyalty shown to Cobra Commander. That is a direct contradiction of how they're portrayed in the comics, and I prefer it. But in the DTC line, they put out a new CG. It had a badass head sculpt. It did what the original head sculpt did, but it was bigger, better proportioned, better detailed, and the rest of the body was a Claws Commander, and so the proportions were okay, but it was kind of bland. It wasn't a uniform. It was not a uniform shade of crimson from top to bottom. The pants were burgundy. I think it threw off the whole look. But if ever I was going to decide, I'm going to try to army build CG, which I've never in my life felt compelled to do. But if I was going to do it, that's how I do it. They're a little bit more. They still look. I mean, they're still dressed up. I mean, the jackets are pulled over. They're buttoned up. They're just a little less ceremonial looking. I kind of prefer that. I mean, if you go back in history, 100, 200, 300 years, armies across the world always looked real regal in their colors and their layers, and that was cool. But for the 80s, I feel like the CGs were impractical. But I've been wanting, yeah, I kind of realized listening to some of our previous shows, I'm like, my God, there's other people that worship the Crimson Guard. We haven't really talked about it, so I wanted to get it in there because but I mean, it was a decent figure if you like the CGs, and shockingly, they're not all that expensive, and I have considered buying a couple of them. So, yeah.
I think one of the other interesting, well, there's two more figures in this line. I mean, it seems like we're going to end up talking about every figure in the wave just because the waves are so small. So, you know, what the hell? The next one on the list is Scrap Iron, which is, I thought was a fantastic update to Scrap Iron. Again, proportions are kind of wonky. It didn't age well, but at the time, I thought that was a beautiful figure.
Well, I'll give them this. It was a whole lot less bland than the original Scrap Iron.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that iconic can be good, as long as it's a look that really says something. Sometimes iconic can also just mean, well, it was the first, and so by default, it tends to be looked at as the best. In which case, I think the original Scrap Iron is one boring ass figure. The character's never really done much for me.
They didn't really develop it much in the comic books or in the cartoon.
No,
I think some of the comic books they eventually get into his backstory, but they just really never developed that character, which I think really is a shame.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think his biggest claim to fame in the comic book was I think he shot the rockets that killed the Softmaster, and he blew up the car they were in, and I think that's what Billy lost his leg.
Yeah,
and the Softmaster was killed, and what's her name? The balloon bear was in there.
Dude, your audio again. All right, so yeah, sorry, our audio keeps cutting out. I don't know what the deal is. We are not technically advanced, so
no.
So you were saying about Scrap Iron, his claim to fame was basically killing the Softmaster and Billy.
I mean, in the cartoon, he had a few moments. He had, he was basically Cobra Commander's co-conspirator against, while trying to stop the creation of Serpentor in the cartoon, and then even he falls in line and he backstabs Cobra Commander because that's what Cobra does. They just backstab the shit out of each other. I don't know how they're a functional organization for more than a week at a time.
Well,
but
I think they are. That's the point.
But I guess when you get an alliance of villains together, well, you just can't count on a whole lot of loyalty except to oneself.
Right. And that leaves the last figure.
Hey, wait. I didn't. But that Scrap Iron, when I saw that figure, I'm like, I looked at it, I'm like, you know what's weird? The helmet's bulbous, but they actually managed to make Scrap Iron even exciting looking. He looked kind of futuristic, a little over the top. I disagree that it aged badly, because the fact is, any era of sci-fi that you look at, you can kind of find characters that look like that. And I think that figure, it worked as Scrap Iron for me in a way that the boring other ones really hadn't. I kind of wish it had gotten a little more play. I really wish they had just left out the gargantuan Warhammer 40K style shoulder pads. But the rest of that
like those, actually.
Good. And he's cheap on eBay, and I should really buy one. So
there you go. And that leaves the last figure in the wave, which I just bought one. for real cheap on the card, which is the Snow Serpent. It's a new sculpted Snow Serpent. It's hello kitty. It's
Yo,
I
gotta
think it's
go.
a little when you look at it, the figure it's a little thin for a Snow Serpent. I mean, you'd expect them to be a little bit bulkier with just the cold weather gear. But one of the things that I really find endearing about this particular figure is the removable helmet.
Um, wow, never saw that plot twist coming. Well, here's what I appreciated about that Snow Serpent, and I had two of them at the time. Probably could have gotten more. Probably should get some now. Don't have now, but they took what I thought was really kind of cool about the design from the Joe versus Cobra new sculpt version, and they way. I mean, it's a completely new sculpt from head to toe.
Yeah.
But they took almost all of those design elements and they refined it. The sculpting's better. The proportions are better.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. He's a tad bit skinny, but that's better than the proportions that the previous version had. But the helmet's good. I mean, it's got a lot of detail in it,
Yeah.
which is cool. Something about the Arctic Troopers for Cobra always having like fur around like the boots and the capes and I don't know, I like that look. And I think the DTC Snow Serpent succeeded in the color scheme was right. The accessories were good. The proportions were good.
Yeah, because if you look at the original Snow Serpent, he doesn't have any sculpted fur at all.
He does. Shoulders, collar.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But he doesn't have like the big furry boots.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up Snow Serpent from 1991 has like a really hairy sweater vest on, and he's got some feathery cuffs on his boots, but they actually lessened the fur, and kind of like that they basically the Snow Serpents in the DTC line, they do have the furry capes too, and those guys look like they're ready to be out in the worst temperatures that a human could possibly survive for a very long period of time, and while only killing a couple of each other. So that was a very well done figure, and honest to God, I think it is one of the preeminent examples from the DTC line of a figure that I can't believe does not have a more revered status within the conversation of the line. I feel like that Snow Serpent, I think it's still, I mean, I looked at the one you have on the card while I was at your house, and I picked it, and, I took it closely. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I'm like, I'm not entirely certain why that particular version of the Snow Serpent is not talked about more even now. But if I'm not mistaken, people already built them then when they were out. But I don't remember them getting a lot of praise then either. And I don't really see why, because I really feel like I think it's one of the best that the DTC line had to offer.
Absolutely. I had to get one. Just because, it's just for all the reasons. All the reasons that you just hit on. My only like nitpick is the pistol that's sculpted to his chest is just like horribly undersized, and it's just like comical almost. But aside from that, I think that's the only thing that I can nitpick on that figure.
And like I said, the helmet comes off, and he's got you know what? I can't say that word. That fucking word for that ski mask that goes on.
Oh, clava.
I always screw it up. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why Brian has corrected me on that at least 750 times since we've been friends. Still can't get it, but someday, perhaps. Yeah. After that, hang on, what was the follow-up wave? Well, you know what? I'm just going to start right now. The follow-up wave had what, in my opinion, is the best of all of the DTC figures. It had the Saw Viper. It was a follow-up. I mean, it's
dude, we're moving into 2006 at that point in time.
I know. I know. Because the rest of the DTC line, I don't. Well, I just want to get this out there because that Saw Viper, I just went and looked on eBay, and they're cheap, but not as cheap as I wish they were. I did end up ordering one. But
I still have one on the card.
I know I looked at that again while I was at your house, and I was reminded why there was a time I had 6 of those guys. I wish I still did.
I can't tell you how many of those guys I used for customs. I must have had 20 of those things. I've still probably got 10 helmets floating around.
I believe you do, as a matter of fact. Looking through all your fodder, I believe you do. That Saw Viper was not just a better figure than the original Saw Viper. Let's face it, it doesn't take a lot. But no. It was practical. Yes. It was battle ready. It was subtle in a real dark red. What the fatigues were black, all black. The flak vest, the boots were like a real dark red color. It was completely and utterly subtle looking. Again, I don't mind loud Joe figures sometimes. This Saw Viper, it was on the border of stealthy, and it was cool looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it looked badass and infinitely army buildable if you could get them. And I remember them being pretty widely available then.
Yeah, and I had no problem getting Saw Vipers. It's one of those that I would pick up one almost every time I saw one. I go to the store and it's like, there's no new Joes. I'll just get a Saw Viper.
Saw Vipers, yeah. I mean, I lots of friends that we knew and that were customizing, they use those because, well, for one, it was an easier way to get that realistic fatigues sculpts than the guy that came with the Humvee at the time. But it was just really cool of a figure, and I don't know what happened to mine. I wish I still had them. But that was, I think that figure is the top of the pile for the DTC line for me.
One of the ones that I was going to point out is actually, it's just a straight repaint of the Chief Torpedo figure, and that's the low light, which is basically an homage to the version 1 low light, but it works really well.
Yep, it works really well on a really super meh level too. So
I didn't get any of that. Your audio was crap again. So we're gonna try this again here. I've moved closer to the router. Hopefully that will solve the problem. I don't think it will, but it's the only thing we can think of to get it working.
Maybe.
Because it's nice.
Actually,
what were you saying about the low light figure?
Well, it's the same thing that I would say. The original low light design is okay. It's not exciting. And every time Hasbro's rehashed it by doing a tribute to it later on, same problem. It's nifty. I find it boring. I prefer the wacky low light that they made later. And the DTC one had the same problem.
Totally do not agree.
I know that. And most people don't. But I can't praise it. Just like the really detailed Pursuit of Cobra one, I could praise for the sculpting.
Yeah.
Still the same old meh design. So I don't know. I'm in a tiny minority of people, but it's a all gray figure, and the only I still maintain the only really excellent, awesome thing about the original low light is the red goggles. That has followed through on every version of low light since, and as long as it has it, it works with low light for me. But don't know, just never been lit up by that design. So
which kills me. And
I brought up the Saw Viper when I did because I thought, I swear to God, the Saw Viper was released early on. I guess not. And my
because I was looking at looking at yojo.com, and it's like, well, I remember these coming out in a different order, but No, they didn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah,
just
me
like
too.
weird
Well, right.
ones for it to come out, the one that came out with Lowlight that just like came out of left field was Flash.
Grand Slam.
Grand Slam. Sorry,
Um,
I keep thinking Flash. Yeah, Grand Slam.
that was
Like out of nowhere.
that was a case where I got excited because again another lost character came back to the forefront all of a sudden. There had not been a figure of Grand Slam since the Silver Pads repaint in 1983. I agree, it was completely and totally out of left field. It wasn't even out of left field. It was from a whole different ballpark.
Yes.
The fact
Just gonna say
that Grand Slam, aka James J. Barney, was all of. I don't know if they got the trademark back, or I don't know if somebody who happened to be working at Hasbro at the time was just like a lifelong, like he hit like maybe a soft spot for Grand Slam from when he was a kid, and he just decided, hey, I'm working here. Let's see if we can make this happen. But it was random, and I can't look at Yojo right at the moment because I work computer. The screensaver comes up like every 10 minutes, and I can't. They won't let it to work computer. I can't change it. But the Grand Slam figure, I remember looking at it. I'm like, well, I mean, it's the same color scheme as the very first Grand Slam.
Yeah.
But he was like he was all fatigued, and
it's
and
a very
the padding
nice
was. Yeah, I mean that for once, I actually didn't mind that he had the red pads on because, well, he was so far removed from Flash at that point that he stood out on his own. But yeah, he totally looked like he was ready to just charge into battle and launch a rocket at whatever was closest to him, and then strap on a jump pack and fly through the explosion dramatically.
I don't remember
really
that one being
that.
particularly easy to find either.
No, as a matter of fact, I think, yeah, I think you're right. I think he was one of the more difficult ones to find. Not rare, but
No.
he was not one that if I went into Toys R Us, he was there in numbers because I don't think he was.
No. Along with those two figures, we got a new character, which was Metal Alert, which just has a whole different connotation because that's just like, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. But still, it's a cool figure.
Well, that figure had two great things going for it. Well, I love new characters in the line. That's one of my bread and butter. And the other thing that it had going for it was he was brightly colored, but I always got I couldn't see him as just another medic. I always saw him as like if you give him like a parachute or a harness, he looked like he could have been like one of the para-rescue guys, and that's how I used it. I really dug him on that basis alone. I always wish that, you know how the Transformers had the Autobot named Red Alert. I never quite understood why his name couldn't be Red Alert too, because Red Alert is a little bit awkward. I do believe one of his prototype code names was Crash Cart.
I would have liked Crash Cart better. I think that would have been much more appropriate than Metal Alert.
Me too. I don't know if there was a practical reason, like a trademark reason, why they didn't end up going with Crash Cart. I'm not really sure. I do agree that I think it's a lot cooler of a code name.
Maybe because not a lot of people know what a Crash Cart is.
Maybe. I mean, anybody who watches medical dramas, you know what a Crash Cart is. But I guess for the general toy buying population that maybe doesn't spend any time in hospitals, maybe you wouldn't know what it is. But you are a medical professional, so I will. For anybody listening to this that might not know, do give a brief explanation what the crash cart is.
The crash cart is something that they have usually in the emergency room or somewhere on the floor, and what is in it is everything that's needed to run a cardiac arrest. So you have a defibrillator, cardiac defibrillator / cardiac monitor. You have all the first line cardiac medications. You have emergency airway stuff, so to be able to intubate, and bag valve mask, decompress chests. It's basically for when your patient crashes that that you have all the equipment that you need in an emergency in one specific cart that can be moved to wherever that patient is in extremis. That's what a crash cart is.
Yep. So now, cool to find out the real world explanation, and even cooler now. I mean, yeah, I like it as a code name, and I think it's a perfectly serviceable Joe code name.
Absolutely. I'm surprised I've never used it on one of my customs, to be honest.
You know, I've helped you name some of your customs over the years.
I know.
You even made medic customs, and it's never occurred to one of us.
Nope.
Wow. Well, there's always a chance to remedy that.
Yeah.
But, I
played fetch with the dog or start squeaking the ball.
Got my electric eel.
Ooh.
That I ordered right after we did the podcast about the Valor versus Venom stuff. I've got him out right now because the sun's shining through the window, so he's all lit up. So sunlight's coming through, and God, it's freaking cool looking. So
yeah, I love translucent figures. So it's interesting that they have the figures grouped together on Yojo by G.I. Joe and then by Cobra. I don't remember if they came out that way.
I don't think they did. I want to say. I think Mutt and.
Was there a Joe wave and a Cobra wave then? Because they're all grouped together, which would suggest that's how they came out that way. And it's, hey.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's been a long time, so it is possible that. I mean, let's put it this way. Yeah, the first DTC stuff. I mean, my God, it's quite very literally 15 years ago, so we could be flawed, but I swear that the waves were actually mixed. Like when Scrap Iron came out, I swear he was right alongside on the pegs with Barrel Roll, and in the same. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
I don't know. I don't know because everything's grouped together. Because you start talking about the Saw Viper, and I'm looking at it, and right next to it is the really nice Cobra Trooper that came out. That's basically a repaint of the Ghost Bear figure.
Yeah. I had
a nice head that has a balaclava on it.
And he had the cool techie looking ski mask thing.
Balaclava.
I had 2 of those. No, I had 3 of those Cobra Troopers. My son actually has 2 of them. He still plays with them. He likes them as ninjas, and I'm fully in support of that.
See, I remember that one being a little harder to find too.
I remember. I think I saw them in Toys R Us, but I think I got mine through the mail. Because you know what, they had to have been mixed wave of Cobras and Joes. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think I ordered those. Like, if I got extras, I would get them at Toys R Us if I found them. But I think I ordered them by the wave from Hasbro Toy Shop. So, and I think I had all the carded ones. So, yeah, they must have been. I don't know. That's weird.
It is kind of weird. Because the other one that's next to him there is. It looks like it should be a new character, but it's not, and it's Monkey Wrench, which is we got another Dreadnought. I think I'm not a huge Dreadnought fan, but it was kind of.
Nor am I. I'm not a big Dreadnought fan. For me, Monkey Wrench was always the least exciting because he was basically the first 3 Dreadnoughts, but released later. I kind of liked his voice work on the Sunbow cartoon. I liked his introduction. He's never really done anything for me. I did kind of like the DTC version. It is different from the original. He doesn't really look like a ripoff of the original.
No, not at all.
3 Dreadnoks anymore. He had a unique head sculpt, and so he had this crazy long hair, and he had a really impressive sculpt for the beard. Like, it's well done. It's well.
And the removable coat, which was pretty cool too.
Yeah, it was. It was real detailed. Like, it was all. Like, the sculpting was real good. Like, it was shabby looking. That was good looking. Like, that was a good figure. I got a lot of like WWE wrestling vibes, like character vibes off of it. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but I think it worked. I'm not a Monkey Wrench fan, but if I'm gonna pick a favorite version of Monkey Wrench, that, in my opinion, is really the only way to go with it. Because at least it was different.
And as single carded figures go, that's about it. I mean, that about
honestly forgot that Monkey Wrench existed too. So
that was about it for single carded figures. One of the things that they continued to do, though, which I wanted to bring up, one figure in particular, was comic packs. They kept doing the comic packs. Some of the O-rings figures were re-released in the DTC. They were specifically DTC, but we both agreed we were going to keep it to the new sculpt figures. The comic pack in particular that I want to mention is the one with Hannibal in it, which was the young Serpentor. The real nice, it's not real nice looking at it again, but it's basically a repaint of Spirit, which I really liked the look from the comic book, and they had translated that into a figure. And then again, kind of out of left field figure of CoverGirl, which you try and get that figure now, and is ridiculously expensive. Probably one of the most expensive figures out there to get.
Yeah, if you try to buy, if you look just for CoverGirl by itself, it's expensive. If you try to look at CoverGirl as part of the 3-pack, that's a car payment. Really, maybe not, but it's for the DTC figures, which are on average not too bad. That one is. I don't know if the notoriety with that CoverGirl figure in particular is because it was just an upgrade of, or if it was
a nice upgrade though. It was a fantastically sculpted figure.
Right.
It was a new head. I think it was a whole new sculpt body too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, from the top of her windblown hair to the boots. Yeah, she was entirely a completely original sculpt. It was well detailed. It had better proportions than the original CoverGirl, but it also accurately reflected what she looked like in the Devil's Due comic.
Yeah.
In the cartoon, CoverGirl was there. In the original Marvel comic, she was there a couple of times. She didn't really become a notable character until Devil's Due used her, which I don't know if they were going off the code name or what, but they basically reintroduced her as kind of an intel person. CoverGirl, in my opinion, always sounded like it was just a play on her character background of runway model turned tank jockey in the army, which honestly always felt kind of rather impractical for a backstory. But I mean, the CoverGirl figure is really,
but unique.
Yeah. Oh yeah, unique. Yeah. No, that's not. No, I'm not saying. No, I'm not saying it didn't work, and I'm not saying that people from high-profile, famous career path don't decide that, you know what, forget all this stuff. I'm gonna go. I'm feeling the call. I'm gonna go serve my country. There's nothing wrong with that. It always. Now, as an adult who's watched many people take left turns and right turns and all kinds of things with career paths, it makes a lot more sense to me. When I was growing up, like, even the time when the DTC or when the Devil's Due line was going on, looking back on her original backstory, it made less sense to me. I don't really like her as the undercover, as the intelligence operator, because for me, that's all Lady J and Spirit and Scarlet, and so I'm glad Spirit was included. But do you remember the fan vote for that 3-pack? Because they had on the, I think, the Hasbro website, there was a vote that the fans could do to pick a pick a comic pack to do, and that was the winner, the clear winner. Now Coach Eves is downstairs barking. Good night.
Yeah.
Pets.
Right.
Pets, kid. But I don't remember what all of the other choices were, but if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a comic pack listed with Nemesis Enforcer and Falcon.
Yeah.
That's the one I voted for because I wanted a new sculpt version of Nemesis Enforcer to happen to replace the fairly much trash sculpted version that they had in the original line. And even though that particular 3-pack did not win the poll, a year later, there was a comic pack that came out in the 25th line where there was an all-new Nemesis Enforcer and a mostly repaint, lazy-ass, horribly sculpted, ugly Falcon figure that came out. But so it didn't win to be part of the DTC line, but it did come out later. So that was kind of cool.
I will put an addendum to that because it occurs to me at looking at Yo Joe that there are some very glaring omissions from their page for the DTC line. There were some figures that I don't think there was. I've called it the Wave 4 syndrome before.
That's because they were released through the club, the G.I. Joe Collectors Club. Later, Hasbro canceled them. They never shipped.
Yep.
The G.I. Joe Collectors Club wound up selling that wave as an exclusive wave later on. I want to say I think they actually wound up re-releasing that right after the convention, 2006, maybe it was 2007. That whole last wave was an Airtight, Outback, Falcon.
Because there's your Falcon figure, Munitia.
Yeah. Munitia and
Colonel Courage and the Night Viper.
Wait, who?
Colonel
Courage.
Who? Yeah.
Colonel Courage had a figure in 1993. He ain't never had another figure after that.
Then I'm thinking of maybe Major Barrage. Yeah, I'm thinking of Major Barrage. I got to look because I've got one.
No. Well, maybe. No, he was earlier in the DTC line too. Oh, yeah, they had a Cobra Officer.
Cobra Officer.
The Cobra Trooper where they had silver highlights.
Yep.
But
Major Barrage. I guess we didn't talk about Major Barrage, but I
kind of forgot about him.
Yeah, so there was a Falcon figure. You did get a Falcon figure. The Airtight, which was really cool looking figure. It's really hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
The Munitia wasn't too bad. The Outback was just weird. Although I have used the Outback, the head off of that in my Outback custom. And then the Night Viper, which, as much as I love Night Vipers, it really was not an improvement on the original.
Yeah.
But I do have that Night Viper.
Last wave. Yeah, that last wave in my opinion, had some nifty character choices. By the time we actually saw the prototypes, most of them didn't really do much for me. Then the club put them out. They were expensive because, of course, they were.
Yeah.
They were limited. They were from the club. They were limited, and they were from the club. So, of course, it was going to cost a bunch of money to get them. But there was some good stuff in there. Here, come here, you. Come here. I'm trying to get my son here. Come here. Wait, come here. Come here. Come here. Okay, come here. Here. Say hi to Brian.
Hi.
Hi, Blake. How are you?
Yeah, there we go. You want a podcast with us? No, not so much. We're kids. Okay.
All right. So not only were there some awesome figures in this line, there were, I think, 2 of the coolest vehicles that they have ever made came out in the DTC line. And that is the Rolling Command Center, the Rock, and the Rhino, which looks like an Aliens APC that has a helicopter built into it that you press a button and it has it's spring loaded and the helicopter rises up.
I had both of those figures. I had both of those vehicles. I loved both of those vehicles. When I moved, I think I could keep them. I really wish I had them now. I looked at eBay, just curious, what does the rolling operation, whatever that was, the Rock, what does it go for on eBay? In the box. Wow, $299. You remember when the DTC line was on its way out? The club had not yet revealed that they were going to put that 4th wave out. And Hasbro Toy Shop was actually clearancing a bunch of that stuff out.
Yeah.
And that, like, the Rock was going for, it was like half price. Oh, wow, those were the days.
Right.
Yep, there was a Rock on eBay last week with a buy it now with $299, and oddly enough, I think $80 shipping. Okay, I know USPS rates have gone up, but come on now. But yeah, I think the shipping price was literally like $25. I'm like, you know what, it might be, but that's a lot. But those were 2. They weren't even just good vehicles for the time. They were good vehicles for the entire. Like, they were well done. They were well detailed. They had a lot going on with them. They were interesting. They were different than anything they'd done. And they included drivers with them. It's dubious whether they could be considered great figures or not.
Yeah.
I liked them because they were new characters. I liked the driver of, I think it was the Rock. It was Long Range, the second Long Range character. But there was the Sigma 6 character of Long Range. Basically, this gave him a 3 3/4 inch version, which he didn't have otherwise. But the other new character was Cannonball. Is an odd one. It was an odd figure with weird parts choices. I believe the code name was shared with the Transformer. The character itself, as written on a file card, was basically came down to he drove a lot of things and he did it really crazy and he joined G.I. Joe. This is not an uncommon backstory for many of the drivers throughout the line. It was notable because, again, his file name was John Borden, and he was, again, based on a Hasbro employee, and I believe he was a Hasbro employee at the time. I think it was, John Borden? The file name was definitely Borden, and yes, he was definitely based on someone that was working at Hasbro at the time, maybe on G.I. Joe, maybe not. But they were odd. They were odd figures. But I always applaud when they bring out new characters, and that really worked. But those vehicles were, man, they were well done.
Yeah, I love that Rhino. It's still, I don't have one. I think I've had 2 of them over the years. I customized my first one. It didn't come out. And then like you, I don't think I was able to move my second one because I had it in Poncha.
Yeah,
When we moved out of Poncha, I don't think it went with us. But and that one goes for at least $200 loose.
Yeah, you were living in Poncha Springs, right? When we became friends.
No,
So
I was still living in Denver.
Okay, but yeah, so we've been friends for a while. These figures were out a while ago. Yes, I believe when I moved, I had to leave them behind. 1 second, just talk. Hang on.
Yeah, let me pause it then. Hang on a sec here.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Yeah, I had to leave them behind when I moved, and it kind of sucks.
Yeah, I really wish I had that Rhino back. That was probably one of the coolest things. I mean, it had doors that opened on the sides, and the doors went back to where you could, it was an armored personnel carrier, and the helicopter, you pushed a button on the back, and it rose up on the spring-loaded platform. And
oh, that's right. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't the design of it obviously not based on the Colonial Marines vehicle from Aliens, but
yeah, it's roughly
kind of the
based
same
on
vibe. Like it was.
Yeah, it's roughly
like it did. Like
Aliens APC.
Yeah, like somebody took some inspiration from it and it worked. And that little helicopter was really freaking cool looking because, I mean, the size of it, you could think maybe it'd be an unmanned helicopter, but no, you can actually fit a figure in there. It's well done. There's one other vehicle that I want to give some props to from that line.
Would that be the Night Force Humvee?
It would absolutely not be that because I forgot that even existed. Because look, great vehicle, great realistic vehicle. Too realistic, in my opinion, for the Joe line. That was great with the BBI line. It was so. I drove a Humvee when I was in the Army. The details on that thing were so realistic. The design was so well done. It felt like it wasn't even a G.I. Joe vehicle because there was really nothing exaggerated, over the top, or fun about it. No, I want to give props to the HISS tank. I am biased because I am a fan of HISS tanks in general. Some of the few vehicles that I had.
Come out? Was that 2005?
Yeah. It was driven by, yes, it was 2005.
Okay.
It was driven by an all red and silver repaint of the super lanky Night Creeper, which the figure, we talked about it. The choice of that for the driver was, well, fucking bizarre. I mean, they did the red and silver. I don't know. I think they were going for maybe the vibe of the original HISS Viper, or the original HISS driver from the Real American Hero line. I don't know, but whatever it was, that figure was not red and silver. The Night Creeper was. It was a ninja. It was a tech ninja. I don't know what I don't know what it was doing.
I did not have that vehicle. I never had that particular model of this tank.
I had 2 of them. I still have one of them. It's downstairs. The back of it was cool. It had the troop. It held the figures in the back, just like the HISS version 2. It had missile launchers in a few different spots instead of like the cannon on top in the gunner spot. So, I mean, the missile launchers, they were real boxy missile launchers, but you could take them out. So if you could find other weapons to swap in, I kind of wish it had included weapons that you could swap out yourself, so that you could change the look of it. It didn't, but it took a lot of elements from the original HISS.
Fucking dogs. Jesus.
Yeah. Kids, pets.
Yeah.
I love them, but sometimes it takes patience and breathing to be zen about it before. Well, sometimes you gotta yell. But DTC HISS had a lot took a lot of design cues from the original HISS, a lot from the HISS 2.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it didn't take any design elements from the pop-up head Hiss 5. Thank God it had nothing in common with that at all. It's the only Hiss tank that was the only Hiss tank I don't like. I have one of them. Thanks, I hate it, but I had to because it's a Hiss tank. But DTC version was really cool. I mean, it wasn't classic. It was not an iconic vehicle. It is definitely one of the more overlooked versions of the Hiss tank, but I think it's got a lot of merit.
It's funny you should say that. What you said about the Night Force Humvee, that you completely forgot it existed, because I completely forgot that Hiss tank has existed, and I think the only one that I've ever seen in person is yours.
If I was not such a fanboy over the Hiss tanks in general, it's entirely possible I would have forgotten all about it too. But it's stuck in my mind because of what it is. The DTC Hiss was repainted by the club some years later. As a matter of fact, I think it was that year that they had the Eco Warriors and the Zombies, and the Ninja Shabang, for whatever reason, was thrown in that set, because why the hell not? They repainted the DTC Hiss in it was orange. It was a new septic tank. It was not the Dayglow neon orange that the original septic tank. The original septic tank in 1992 was a direct repaint of the original Hiss tank, but instead of the typical gunner's pod with the double barrel cannons, it had a impractically huge water squirting cannon on top of it. The body of it, honestly, it was so bright Dayglow orange that you could actually be forgiven for overlooking that it may have been a Hiss tank if the treads weren't a giveaway. But when the club decided to create the septic tank 2, they used the DTC version. It was really cool. Yeah, it's in this kind of this nice neutral orange color with much darker yellow highlights on it, or trim on it. That was a really well done. I mean, for taking an obscure, gimmicky vehicle that few collectors, other than, I don't know, me, can actually even appreciate. I mean, that was a really good update. And it was clever of them, I thought, at the time, to decide to use that version of the Hiss tank, because it was overlooked, and it wasn't, instead of redoing the original again. But yeah, so I'm pulling for the Hiss tank, but I'm biased. So, but were there other vehicles? I can't remember. I honestly can't remember.
Look. I was just gonna say, were there other?
I don't think there were, but could be wrong.
Well, the Night Ops Humvee was one. Let's see, 2006 were convention exclusive vehicles. 2006.
I thought the Hiss was from 2005, but maybe it wasn't, since we both.
No, I'm stuck on the exclusives. Hang on a second here. I'm stuck on the exclusives page.
Yeah, my
6. Yeah, I got stuck.
They clearly don't want us using. They clearly don't want us using our work computers after work, which I get. They don't want to surf the internet all night.
The Ice Saber.
Well, I had to stop. Ice Saber.
Yeah, with Frostbite. So it was.
Oh wait!
It had that pop up.
That was in the DTC line.
It was. It was in the very first line.
I thought that was in the Feller versus Venom line.
No.
Huh. Okay.
So it was that green tank the white tank with the green stripes, and it had that pop-up missile launcher in the back. It was really weird.
I But it was, but I'm not wrong. It was a repaint of a Valor versus Venom vehicle, right?
Mm,
Or am I just completely? I don't remember it, folks. I can't use Yo Joe. What I thought was my screensaver being a problem. No, they're doing security updates remotely, so I can't use my computer to look it up. So I'm not actually ignorant. It's just they're doing this crap and they do it every week, and I just never realized that they do it on Thursdays apparently until we decided to do this podcast.
yeah, it is a repaint of Valor versus Venom vehicle.
Okay, so the original vehicle was not that memorable. I mean, it was nifty, I guess. I had a little bit of a wolf vibe. It was okay, but
I think that's
the
a bit of a.
repaint.
I think that's a bit of a stretch. You're giving it more credit than it's due. But
No, I'm being kind
yeah,
to a very forgettable vehicle that clearly had an even more forgettable repaint I can't believe that was in the DTC. It is entirely possible that I may just never have seen that version because I don't remember it. I didn't have it. I didn't have either version. Was the Frostbite that came with it just a repaint of the Frostbite that came with the Valor versus Venom version?
yeah, pretty sure it was.
Okay, so that was like the third or fourth repaint of that same mold of Frostbite. It didn't look like Frostbite the first time. Didn't look like Frostbite then.
Yep. So you got in 2005, you had that Cobra Hiss, you had the Night Ops Humvee, you had the Rock and the Rhino, and then in 2006 you had the Ice Saber, and then in 2007 it looks like it was just convention exclusive Vamp, which was weird.
Yeah. So okay, so the vehicles in the DTC line started off with a bang in 2005.
Yeah.
And
then just went out with a whimper.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. Does it count as a whimper or does it count as little more than a death rattle?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's medical term would be agonal respirations, but yeah, pretty much.
There you go. I really think that final Ice Saber, I think that's perfect. The G.I. Joe, what was it? Diagonal respirations? Yeah,
agonal.
There you go. Okay, well,
Not
you and your words and your sophisticated language skills, sir. Wow, what a useless repaint that probably was.
Yeah, I honestly I don't remember actually seeing it in the store. If I did, it was so immemorable that I just like, no, I'm not even looking at that because it's a piece of shit.
Forgot about it altogether. I
absolutely loved Night Ops Humvee. I thought that thing was fantastic.
No, like I said, it was a really great vehicle, and I drove a Humvee in the Army. I can testify that thing. It was proportional. The wheels were right.
It was a little underscaled for a Humvee because it was a little smaller than like the BBI Humvee that had come out. But
yeah, but I mean, I'm saying it's not like it was huge, but it's not like it was like Mudbuster or Badger sized either. But
I'm not saying it was badly proportioned. I'm just saying it was off just a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, but just as a GI Joe vehicle, but then to be fair, I think I understand why they did it because for a lot of fans who often got critical about some of the more outlandish vehicles that they did, and who sometimes they just wanted something realistic for their Joes to, well, they did a great job on that note.
And it came with a ton of stuff too.
Yeah,
it had removable.
If I remember right,
it had removable gas tanks. It had
a
sculpted thing in the bed where you could put one of the guns. It had a gun mount on the tail. It had the gunner's top. The doors opened.
Didn't it have It had a 50 cal and something else that I think you could swap out, right?
Yes. It was like a bear.
Yeah.
And then like a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. It had like a shovel that fit in there somewhere. Ammo crates that went in a door storage compartment. I mean, it was just a highly playable toy.
Well, and I can understand why that was a big hit because a friend of mine, former friend of mine, he had like 4 of those, and then he had 3 or 4 of the desert versions, and as pieces, I admired them. I didn't find them exciting, but you can't fault them for anything they did. I forgot, like you said, they came with all that extra stuff in there. Yeah, that was pretty well done. There was one DTC thing that can get overlooked that I wanted to mention. There was a set with G.I. Joe, G.I. Jane, the Interrogator, and a couple of Vipers. They were all new sculpts. They were all repaints of previous figures, except for the Interrogator had a new head sculpt, and it had a hell of a lot more detail in that line. It was an update of a figure that honestly I never expected to get an update. The idea behind characters for G.I. Joe and G.I. Jane were really great. It's G.I. Jane used most of the bomb strike body, but
right,
had kind of a it just kind of had a well, it was not a nice head sculpt. And then G.I. Joe, on the other hand, was just one giant disaster from head to toe. He used Valor versus Venom Wild Bill as a basis, which you can repaint it in Army green and black if you want to, but it's still a rodeo cowboy outfit in the details. The head was one of the previous Stalker figures, so it was absolutely tiny. He didn't have much of a mouth, so he looked like he was doing this. The whole time it was pretty bad. But it came with Cobra Blue and red repaints of the Valor versus Venom Viper. They were straight up Cobra Vipers, and you could get, I think there were 3 or 4 of them in that pack. Yeah. So if you got a bunch of those sets, you could easily Army build Vipers in the new sculpt format like that. And
that is not the pack I expected you to talk about.
What?
That is not the pack that I expected you to talk about.
What pack did you expect me to talk about?
I expected you to talk about the Steel Brigade versus the Plague Trooper pack, which has one of my favorite characters.
You know what? Before we did this, I had every intention of bringing that up early on. Then we started this, and they say no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Well, right. None of our plans ever survive first contact with the podcast going live to record. So, where shall we start?
I think that was I'm not a huge Steel Brigade fan, but I think that was a fantastic set. The vests were removable. You had a removable helmet. The gear was fantastic. The 2 Plague Troopers that came in it were the heads are all new sculpt. I think they used Snake Eyes, one of the cooler Snake Eyes versions for the bodies.
They did, yeah.
And then it was basically Frankensteined a guillotine, which turned out to be the Cobra Eel commander. And he had a phenomenal backstory. You mentioned it on the live podcast last week when you were here, that he does kind of have the gung ho look to him, but and then that unique helmet with the hoses, and absolutely one of my favorite characters of all time.
I am a Steel Brigade fanatic.
Yeah, that's why I'm
The
surprised.
concept,
That's the set I expected you to talk about because of that.
well, I think what happened there was we should have started with the multi-packs because, honest to God, this easily could have gone. And actually, the only reason I thought of the set with G.I. Joe and G.I. Jane is because I had just cut sight of one of them on eBay for a lot less than I would have expected it to go for with those Vipers in it. And I was looking at it this morning. That's the only reason it was on my mind, thinking to myself, God, I really wish I liked those Vipers more. Maybe I would. But then I get stuck with those shit Joe and Jane figures, so maybe not. But as a concept for the Steel Brigade in the original line, you had a Malloway figure. You could give it its own code name. You could pick its. It was a checklist. You get this order form. You check off all these things that you want your character to specialize in. They send you a file card that they made up. The figure was all repaint parts, but except for the one of the most badass looking helmets that's ever been designed for any property ever in history. I am not exaggerating. I love the Steel Brigade as a concept and as a figure. I absolutely adore it. And this set included, they revived the Steel Brigade idea. This was the first time they were no longer just faceless characters that the fans could pretend were anybody. They were named characters. They had code names.
Yeah.
They had file names. They had gear that was specific to them. As a matter of fact, the leader of that Steel Brigade was the code name was Red Zone. The figure itself, he was the head sculpt was unique, and it was actually based on a real life G.I. Joe collector who won a contest in some magazine for dressing up as a G.I. Joe character and winning. And so they actually based the head sculpt on this fan who won this. And if I'm not mistaken, the collector's name was Andrew Swenson, and he is on my Facebook friends list, and he was Red Zone. It's his face, and it's his hair, and yeah, I mean that's freaking cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, and I like the concept of the Plague because it was a faction for Cobra that was all new. Devil's Due ended up using them, but they were cool because it was like a former Saw Viper and a former Sand Viper and a former Cobra Eel Commander formed this little unit. And if you look at the Steel Brigade characters and the Plague characters, I got the sense that Hasbro wanted to do something else, like expand on that set maybe later. Maybe have additional characters that they would have added to each side. Maybe it never happened. Possibly because the DTC line went away. Possibly because maybe the creative team at Hasbro changed. I don't know entirely. But it was a really, really cool set. And the last time I looked for a set to buy a new one on eBay, I cried into the hot chocolate that I was drinking at the time.
Yeah.
And I could no longer finish that hot chocolate because all I tasted was
your salty tears.
Bitter tears. Yes.
Yeah.
To this day, I do not have a new set. I wish I had a new set because the set that I did have when I was moving, no, I had a loose set, some of which the pieces got lost because, well, had that problem. And the carded set that I had, somebody offered me a good amount of money for it. I wish I had demanded more in retrospect. Maybe I would still have it, but I didn't. I sold it. I'm pissed at myself. So really, some of those bitter tears in my hot chocolate were anger at myself and self-loathing for being dumb. This is why I open 99.9% of the toys that I buy. So I can't sell them later and have seller's remorse.
Yeah.
Instead, I have a bunch of loose stuff that sometimes I lose, and then I have, well, lost my shit remorse. But
yeah, the
can't win 'em all.
cheapest guillotine complete is $60.
I know, because when I was making the guillotine custom that I made for the challenge, I wanted this. I wanted to get one for the sword with the skull on
There's
the
a
the
sword
handle.
on here. There is a sword on here. It's $3, but it comes from Greece. So I'm a little
Yeah,
worried.
but at the time,
$17
at the
shipping.
time, yeah, when I looked, when we did this, what was that? June, July? When I looked, that sword was not available all by itself. The cheapest guillotine that I could find was, maybe it was the same $60 one. I don't know. It's entirely possible that that same seller is overcharging for it. Maybe he's been sitting on that for years. I don't know.
Probably.
But I wanted to get one because I wanted to use the sword that came with him and give it to your custom. But instead, I decided that I did not want to pay enough for a guillotine figure, or I didn't want to pay that much for a guillotine figure and not get, because I didn't want to. But yeah, that set was really cool, and I'm actually rather embarrassed that I forgot about it, simply because I can't use Jewel because my computer.
Well,
Okay.
let me help you out because there was one more set that I think was worth talking about, and that's the Cobra Bat set.
Ew, that's the one that was worth talking about.
All right, it didn't age well, but I think it.
I could appreciate
I liked the head sculpt on some of those new bats.
I could appreciate it because it was they were the Sigma 6 Sky Bats design that they made them into the 3 3/4 inch scale, like they did with Long Range from the Sigma 6 line. I mean, it's a fuck ugly design. It was hideous in the Sigma 6 line. It's hideous in 3 3/4 inch. I mean, he's got the pipes and the weird and the face, and
I liked it.
It's horrific. I hate it. I hate it. I do believe there were other bats included in that set, and if I'm not mistaken, they were the insectoid-looking ones with the shorts and the antennae on their creepy little faces that just, I mean, they're robo faces that honestly they look like, they looked like they were I don't know, not a fan. And then they came with Overkill, which was actually just part of a failed expansion on the line that never happened. So
what was cool about him is he came apart. You could disassemble him.
Well, I don't know. I never had that set, so I didn't realize he could come apart.
I still have one somewhere because I bought 2 of those sets. I like that. I like the like Sigma 6 bat. I think I still have like a shit ton of those bats somewhere. I've got them in a container, but I still have a bunch of them somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't like the insectoid bats the first time, and with all of the copious repaints that they did of that for Valor versus Venom. And then you got these Sky Bats from Sigma 6 that were really just, so
I like those. I think
I'm not a fan. Cool. So I frankly forgot about that set, and frankly, I'd be fine if I forgot about that set again after we finish this conversation.
I think that's probably what's going to happen.
I'm absolutely certain that you're right about that. So the DTC line had a lot going for it.
It did.
I am glad some of those figures are still cheap. Some of which I might try to buy still. Um, Good luck if you are one of the poor unfortunate souls who likes CoverGirl enough to want that figure, because
Yeah, let's look at
you
that.
will
I want
have
to.
to.
That's a good. Let's see if they've got one.
Yeah,
Just to see what they're running.
you may have to sell off.
I don't even think they'll take your firstborn
May
for that. They're like, nah, firstborn's not good
no,
enough.
I was going to say, yeah, you may have to sell off multiple offspring on that one, or
Yeah, here we go. Here's one. Buy it now, $100. Buy it now, $239.
Yep.
$30 for the head, and it's bidding. Someone has bid $30 on the head. Here's another one, $180.
Oh, come on, folks! It's a good figure, but come on, really?
Yeah, it's
Really?
crazy, man. Here's
So
the
how much is
munition
the
for
3-pack going
32.
for? Like, if you get the 3-pack, even if it's loose, how much is the 3-pack going for? Like, what kind of prices? I'm just
I don't know.
curious.
I don't even see the
Well, I
3-pack.
assume when you look up CoverGirl, you find some of the 3-packs listed.
No, I don't see any of the 3-packs at all.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Nope,
I guess.
Nope.
Well,
nope.
I mean, maybe it's possible there's none of those available because they've all been bought up because somebody decided that Hannibal was just something they had to army build. I don't know, but I can't imagine.
Yeah, I used a bunch of those. That's another one that I had bought multiples of because I remember using Hannibal for customs. Now I don't see any of the 3-pack on there, and I kind of like that. Kind of like that Spirit, but I forgot how goofy that design was. How the proportions on that figure.
Yeah, the design was cool because he had like the stealth suit going on.
Yeah.
There was a green version that was carded, then the all black and gray version, which was directly inspired by the comic.
Here's one for $90. That's the cheapest. Yeah, so $90 is the cheapest one.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, the 3-pack. I mean, it was a good 3-pack, but I can't believe the cover was so. That's crazy.
It's one of the more expensive figures. I won't say it's one of the most expensive figures because there certainly are more expensive figures out there, but from that particular line,
but are there more
figures?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there anything else in the DTC line that even comes close to that? And I'm willing to bet no.
The Falcon might be. Let's look at that because that was one that did not see a wide release. Nope, you can get a carded Falcon for $30. So,
yeah, but doesn't that Falcon use that weird Korean War version of Hawk as a basis in Vietnam colors? So
it looks more like I think it's. I want to say they used that for an October Guard figure.
Yeah, they did. It looks great I mean, they might have. I mean, I feel like that design is fantastic for the October Guard. I don't really feel like it works for a remotely modern day U.S. Army character. I think that design is.
I don't think that it worked for
stuck.
Falcon.
I think it's stuck in the '60s, and that figure, it didn't look like Falcon. I mean, it was the next best Falcon figure because no, yeah, that wasn't a great figure. I don't know why the club decided they were going to put that one out.
I don't know. The Airtight's going for 37. There's one for 37 carded.
Yeah. That's slightly above what I paid for that modern 30th anniversary version that I decided to willingly overpay for yesterday because I got desperate and wanted one. A little bit mad at myself for it.
Understandably so, but you want what you want. So it broke my heart to tell you that I just missed one for $27.
It happens. It happens. Yeah, I do remember that DTC version of Airtight was pretty cool. But yeah, there was a lot going for that line. It's too bad that a lot of it's still overlooked now, but you
To
know,
beat the blood
I
for
mean, hidden
product
gems,
that's
lots of hidden
offered.
gems there.
What's that?
I said, well, the DTC line had lots of hidden gems. So it was like a line full of hidden gems. So
Yeah, that's it. And that, some of it was hard to find, some of it wasn't, and it didn't. There wasn't a lot to it. It didn't last very long, and yeah, as you said, it transitions into the 25th anniversary line of figures, which is the next thing that we'll be talking about on the next time we go with GI Joe.
Yep. And apparently we have to do it from the top floor of Brian's house because his basement clearly does not like Zoom.
Yeah, it does seem to, the sound definitely does seem to be better up here.
Yeah.
So the background on my end isn't as interesting, that's for sure. Because sitting down in the basement with all my
I have to say, hi Alice, I hear you with your squeaky toy. Yeah.
Stop. But I think that we pretty much covered just about everything for the DTC line there. I mean, we got the comic packs, we got the 6-packs, we got the single carded figures, and we got the really cool vehicles in there. So I don't really have anything else to add for that. So as always, thanks for watching. Do all that fun social media stuff. Share, like, subscribe. Comment below on things that you liked in the DTC line, things you didn't like. Just any comments about the DTC line. We're always interested in hearing what people had to say about previous lines of toys. And until next time, stay tuned and
good night, everybody. Good night.
And thanks for watching.